you clicked on this video. So chances are you probably like to play video games. Why? Is it the leisure of escaping the stresses of everyday reality? Is it the feeling of superiority every time you land a meteor smash? Or maybe you enjoy a good narrative that simply can't be told in the format of a movie? Or perhaps you just simply want to feel something. Why do I play video games is a question I've been asking myself a lot lately, and looking back at the past 4 games I've been playing, I'm beginning to see why.
Really, come on, man. Such a f***ing bullshit, man. Such a freaking bullshit, man. Such a freaking bullshit, man. Such a bullshit, man. Such a f***ing bullshit, man. That was bullshit, man.
These games are all hard as shit. And my shit is pretty hard. Seriously though, all of these games at some point had me thinking, why am I playing this? This game is literally designed to frustrate the player, and here I am paying money for it like an idiot. And yet, I would go on to 100% complete all 4 of these games. Now this roller coaster of a journey is very much intended by the developers. These are all games of different genres with their own types of difficulty, but they still use a lot of the same techniques to keep you from rage quitting. I think the first step to understanding how they did this is to look at this graph. You got how challenging the game is on one side and the player's skill level on the other. As you progress in the game, it gets more challenging, forcing you, the player, to get good. And if there's no challenge, then you're probably just playing a boring baby game. And too much challenge is just gonna make you anxious and cry like a baby. So naturally, a tougher game is not gonna be so fun in the beginning, since right off the bat it's throwing challenges at you before you even have the chance to get good. Now, this is why the simpler games are a lot more enjoyable when you first start playing them. These are the very arcade-like games, where you have easy to understand controls and an obvious means of winning. Like anyone at any point can just walk right up to these games and start playing, and they will still know what to do. You just walk forward and kill the bad guy. The challenging part comes from actually doing it. These games are a test of how well you can master the controls and learn the enemies. And note that I said master the controls, because learning them should be something that comes naturally. Like no one wants to play a game with bad controls. Actually, most experienced gamers who have played 3D fighters or 2D platformers before would probably understand the controls of these games right away. That's why they're fun to play right from the start. Now, given this logic, you'd think that Metroid Dread, also being a run-and-gun 2D platformer, would fall into this category. Yep, I know you're saying to yourself right now, if I played Cuphead, then shouldn't I easily learn the controls of Metroid and enjoy the game quickly? Tell me, I need to know, no. Okay, well first off, relax, cause I'm about to give my own opinion. Metroid Dread is ass. Actually pretty thrilling. I was seriously considering not even mentioning this game. I mean, I wouldn't even consider this to be a hard game. Like, the hardest boss in Metroid Dread is the easiest boss in Cuphead. No. MD offers a different kind of challenge. The challenge of not knowing where the hell you have to go. Like, okay, imagine you start a game. And then you get thrown into the final dungeon right away, without even acquiring the items to beat it. This is how it feels to play Metroid Dread. And it's very normal for adventure games to have a blocked path that you need to come back to after getting an item. But from start to finish, it's just blocked path, blocked path, blocked path. And so there's so much backtracking and loading screens and just staring at this map trying to find out where to go. Also, this is the first Metroid game I've ever played, unless you count the Nintendo Land attraction, which absolutely slaps. Anyways, I was a stranger to Metroid's traditional game antics, and I didn't know what was a puzzle and what was a blocked path. So I would spend an hour at a blocked path, thinking there's probably a breakable block somewhere, or I need to think outside of the box to solve this one, only to later find out I just needed an item that I would get near the end of the game. That is stupid. It made me feel stupid, and I didn't like feeling stupid. Don't get me wrong. I want a difficult game that will destroy me and step on my balls and make me feel like a pathetic gamer. I want that, I really do. But I also want to know why it's happening. These games should make me question my skills as a gamer, and not my own intelligence. Cause now I'm just feeling anxious, and I'm online crying about it like a baby. But speaking of crying babies, Bloodborne. Now, I actually tried playing Bloodborne about a year ago, and it was my first time playing a From Software game. And about 10 minutes in, I quit. I thought everything about it was obnoxious. The sluggish controls, the way all the NPCs just talk in gibberish then start laughing. It's so annoying. And the constant screaming of every enemy.
I need brain fluid. Murky, mushy fluid that will make me whole. The sticky sound whispers to me. I need my baptism.
It was not my cup of tea. But now, with the release of Elden Ring, I thought instead of spending 80 Canadian on a game I might not like, I would try revisiting its older cousin, Bloodborne, which gets just as much praise, and is free. However, 2 hours into the game, I still felt the same way I did a year ago. I just didn't find this game to be worth getting good at, and I had that why am I playing this moment. But this time I didn't quit. I still wanted to feel the euphoria of playing a From Software game that everyone has been raving about. So to motivate myself, I went online and started watching videos of people passionate about Bloodborne. And that actually worked. Watching Jack Spadici play while giving insight to the lore and providing context of what's going on gave me a newfound respect for this game. There is so much detail in the world design, and the more you play, you realize that everything is interconnected and you begin to appreciate the level design. Suddenly, I wanted to get good. I was willing to overlook this game's shortcomings out of respect to how carefully crafted it is. This is where Metroid Dread failed. Bloodborne and Metroid are actually quite similar, as Bloodborne is pretty much a 3D Metroidvania type game. It's very easy to get lost and not know where to go. How was I supposed to know that after I killed this boss, then this little door in a completely different section of the game magically opens up? That's some Metroid Dread shit. But unlike Metroid Dread, I don't mind it, and that is purely due to aesthetic. Sifu looks and plays like a kung fu movie. Cuphead looks and plays like an old cartoon. The good part of Metroid looks like WALL-E. Metroid didn't click with me. But the point is, if I'm going to suffer in a world, then it better look nice. I don't care if it's the hardest game ever made. I will beat it until I come to a point where I have fully explored all of its ins and outs. In Bloodborne's case, the aesthetic really reminded me of my favorite manga, Berserk. So you can imagine my excitement when I had to fight the big horse. And let me tell you, just like Berserk, this was one mean old donkey. It is maybe the hardest fight in the game, but it is definitely the best. I spent at least 3 hours with this boss. I had to learn the safe spots for all of his moves, upgrade my weapons, grind a little bit, strategically choose my blood gems, and wear my best armor. Only then, after about 50 tries, I finally beat him. And wow, the relief I felt as the words showed on screen. I had finally understood the euphoria of playing a From Software game that everybody has been raving about. However, looking back at that whole ordeal, this was not my favorite boss fight because it pushed me to my limits. No, it was actually my favorite because of this guy. He's located just outside the cave where you fight the boss. He's harmless, and if you kill him you get 5 blood vials, which is the healing item in this game, and pretty much essential for beating any boss. Now, this is the only boss fight that has a free handout like this. And with all the other bosses, if you ran out of blood vials, you have to leave the area to farm them, which takes about 5 minutes. Now, trial and error is the essence of these games, and 5 minutes in between every trial and error is just a spit in the face to your time and sanity. This is where Sifu comes in. Now, Sifu is a goddamn masterpiece, an instant classic, a wah-wah-wee-wah of a game. Alright? Every time you die in Sifu, you get right back up and try again. That is 5 seconds in between every trial and error. But that doesn't make the game any easier. With every death, your age gets exponentially higher until you reach the 70s where it's game over. This raises the stakes with every attempt, providing for some of the most intense gaming I have ever experienced. Like, this game made me rage more than I ever had at a video game. Every death felt more personal than the last, as I knew it was completely my own fault. And the fact that your health lowers and your strength rises as you get older encourages you to play more aggressively to get those hits in, which just made me die even more. Plus, you feel so powerful and badass going up against the normal enemies, and just as you feel like you're getting the hang of it, a boss comes in and just puts you in your place, and it would be that much more humbling. Sifu truly made me question my skills as a gamer, and even more so, my patience as a person. That is why having some form of stress relief in these games is so important. I have never been one to rage, but when you are constantly dying over and over in a matter of seconds, it can get pretty aggravating. In Sifu, before you even have time to process your last death, you're dead again, and just like your age, your anger gets exponentially higher. This is why that graph from earlier was so important. It's called a flow graph for a reason, because the difficulty should be something that flows up and down. Having a constant challenge that requires maximum concentration at all times is exhausting. You need to have some sort of method that players could feel relaxed. Now, Sifu does actually do this by being a level-based game. Like, just look at this graph. And I'm sorry for making you guys look at graphs, like, I know no one likes graphs, but I promise you it'll explain it better than I ever could. Anyways, as you can see, the difficulty fluctuates with every level starting easy but harder than the last. Then it progressively gets harder and harder. Now, Sifu does follow this format, but wow, those bosses will send you straight to your 60s. Cuphead, on the other hand, is also a level-based game, except every level starts hard and then gets harder. As a result, if you were to play Cuphead for maybe 2 hours straight, which I did, you will experience symptoms such as eye strain, headache, and feeling like a goofy goober. Like, there should be one of those notifications telling you to go touch some grass in between long Cuphead sessions.
It's nice to rest your eyes and maybe go outside. Grab a book and get some air.
It's a mild complaint, and Cuphead is a short game anyway, so it's not a big deal. But with a 35-hour game like Bloodborne, the player must have some sort of method of being eased, especially when gaming for long periods. And this is accomplished by having this amazing sense of community built around beating the game. Whether it's a note left by another player warning you of a trap, or watching someone else die in the same spot you did, I took solace in the fact that I'm not suffering alone. Earlier when I got lost, I found this forum, where plenty of other people were having the exact same issue I did. This would lead me into a rabbit hole to the Bloodborne community. People shared their favorite builds, hidden quests, or just their experiences in general. Mostly people talked about how badly this game stomped them, almost like it was something to brag about. And that really helped me come to terms with the fact that dying is part of the game, and the more you do it, the fuller the experience. Also, Bloodborne does a good job of not really telling you anything about its mechanics. So having my phone open beside me felt essential, almost like it was part of the game, and not like cheating, which it technically is. I seriously must have played half the game with my phone open on forums beside me. This raises the question, would it be better to just have in-game assistance? Well, that's my segue to the next section of this video. To answer the question, it depends. it depends on the theme of the game, or if it fits with the narrative. In Bloodborne's case, you're a lone hunter thrown into an unfamiliar world where everything is freaky looking and wants to kill you. Now, if you had a side character like a fairy or something offering you guidance, or even just blocks of text telling you how the game works, then the whole tone of despair and hopelessness would be gone. But even aside from world building, I find experimenting, making mistakes, and figuring the mechanics out for yourself to be the best way to learn a game, or anything for that matter. But what about the ability to change the difficulty of the game, like an easy mode? Well, no. Just no. Again, it's not on brand for the merciless, punishing world of Bloodborne to also have a baby mode. I mean, we're talking about a game where once you beat it, it automatically starts over on a higher difficulty.
And so, the hunt begins again.
Good.
It is ruthless, but not every game is Bloodborne, and easy modes, if done right, are a perfectly fine addition, as long as they keep the spirit of the normal mode with them. For example, in Sifu's easy mode, you have more health and dumber enemies, making them easy to kill, which is fine. It takes no skill to beat it, but hey, it's an easy mode. Nothing wrong with that. But they also made it so that your age only goes up by 1, no matter how many times you die. On top of that, they added a new feature that lets you de-age by 5 years at a time. Why? Everything I said earlier about how great of a mechanic the aging system is gets thrown out the window. Like, Sifu's easy mode is not even a game anymore. Like, you can just mash the attack button and clear entire rooms. Whereas on the normal difficulty settings, it takes an immense amount of skill just to stay alive. They did Sifu dirty, and it hurts to see something perfectly fine get ruined like that. But if you want to see an example of a good easy mode that stays faithful to the core experience, then look no further than Cuphead. The simple difficulty setting makes bosses have less health, less attacks, and sometimes even removes entire phases from the fight. It's a much more mainstream experience that caters to more timid players who understandably don't want to spend hours dying to the same boss. However, if you reach the King Dice without beating all the bosses on regular mode, he will stop you and say that you don't have the soul contracts for all the bosses. Or in other words, you have to beat every boss on normal difficulty in order to get to the end. Now, not only does this tie in with the game's narrative of collecting souls for the devil, but it's also a powerful statement by the developers who are confident in their vision of this game. Like, you need to remember that no matter how much time you spend analyzing and picking apart these games, the developers are the ones making it. They tailor-made their experience to be played a certain way. Like, even in 2-player mode, the bosses have increased health to accommodate the fact that there's more players. And if one of the players die mid-game, then the health of the boss would go back to how it usually would be when there's only one player. No matter how you play Cuphead, you are still getting the same experience. And the simple mode only serves as a stepping stone to the real deal, which is exactly what an easy mode should be and what Shifu should have done. Sifu's easy mode could have been a place for struggling players to go to and learn the mechanics, but you can beat the entire game on easy mode without even touching the counter button.
Are you having fun?
No. They made it nearly impossible to die, and so players will never have to reevaluate their playstyle and improve. This brings me to my final point that I want to make in this video, which is the sense of growth. You know, that feeling of overcoming a challenge that you once thought impossible?
Oh my goodness!
That's what these games are all about. However, that feeling must feel earned, because otherwise you would feel empty. And a lot of the time, that's how Bloodborne made me feel. This could be due to the nature of RPG games, where everything is determined by stats. Like other games, they get easier because you get better at playing them. In this case, it's from raising your stats. And the way you level up your stats is simple, but if you think about it, also genius. Basically, you use blood echoes, which is the in-game currency, to level up. And you get blood echoes by killing enemies. The genius part is that every time you die, you lose all of your blood echoes. Your only chance of getting them back is if you go to the same spot where you died and collect them. But if you die before you manage to collect them, then sucks to be you, they're gone. Now if you recall, trial and error is the essence of these games, and the added risk of losing hours worth of blood echoes forces you to play just as good, if not better, than your last trial. Also, you'll collect blood echoes just by making the journey to where you last died. So with every run back, your blood echoes accumulate, and if you played the game right, they would go into your stats. What makes this so genius is the fact that even if you're horrendous at video games, Bloodborne tricks you into pretty much grinding until your stats get so high that even you, a horrendous player, can win. The game pretty much just calibrated itself to be just the right amount of difficulty for the player, while also pushing them to their limits. You get it? So how does this make the player feel empty? Well, at a certain point, leveling up begins to barely raise your stats. Meanwhile, the enemies will continue to grow stronger at their usual pace. This is when you realize that you didn't get much better at this game. You just raised your stats. And then that's also when you realize that there's not much space to get better. Like, you can only do so much with dodge roll and attack. This makes a lot of the later fights just feel like a bunch of BS. At this point, even when you do win, it doesn't feel good. It just feels like you kept trying until you get lucky. Look at this guy. He was slapping me left and right until he got stuck behind a door, which I stabbed him through repeatedly.
Oh shit! Yo, okay, I have to heal. I thought he was stuck. Oh, he just needs one more hit. Come on. Oh, holy shit. That was scary. God damn.
I'm glad I was able to kill him. He was indeed hard as shit. But not like this. All of the time I've just spent trying to beat this guy was for nothing, because in the end I didn't beat him by being better than him. I beat him using the game's jank, which there is a lot of. And I know, the bigger the game, the bigger the chances of the game having jank. That's kind of an unwritten video game rule. But being in the Bloodborne community has taught me that it's best to take advantage of that jank. For example, luring the enemies to places where they can't hit you and you can hit them is an essential tactic if you plan on beating the game. Like other games, they require you to master the controls and enemies, right? But here it's all about learning the mechanics and the exploits. If you know which stats to level up, it's an easy game. If you can learn how to stick your hand up people's booties, you're a pro gamer. But if you know that spamming your gun as soon as you get up this ladder will kill this guy instantly, then oh, you're a god at this game. And the only reason I resorted to using these broken exploits is because a lot of the difficulty itself comes from being broken. Like, tell me, what is going on here? What am I even looking at? What is this? Where am I? Am I dead? No, I think I'm dead. And I don't think any amount of stats or skills would have saved me in that situation. You see, even if you're someone who beat Bloodborne 100 times, you will still struggle with some of the bosses. Damn it! But if you want to talk growth, then oh my god, Sifu. Like, I know this video is about how to make a hard game and not a hard gamer, but Sifu, I went into Sifu a child, and I came out a wise, wrinkled old man. First time I beat the game, I was at 74, and it took 12 hours of labor. Then over the span of 2 days, I would learn to beat the game at 24, and it took me 50 minutes to do it. This isn't because I unlocked some hidden path or used a speedrunning glitch. I just genuinely got that much better at the game. But this was only after what can be described as some of the most embarrassing moments of my gaming career. Every boss fight started with me getting violated repeatedly. Like, if I can get one hit in before I die again, I would be so lucky. This put me into a state of panic where I would just mash dodges hoping it works, and the game punished me for doing that. But over time, you begin to temper your emotions and learn to play with precision. Learn to only make moves if they are necessary. So it becomes more about how you react instead of how you act. And by the end, dealing with the bosses makes you feel like you're an old kung fu master dealing with some hooligans.
Stop! No!
I used to walk into these fights like... But now I'm like, oi oi oi, that's a sharp kunai you got there. Be careful you don't hurt yourself. And it's an amazing sense of growth that feels earned.
10ヶ月前の君さ、よく頑張ったよ。 本当に
なんか鶴だな僕は。
Contrast that with the Orphan of Kos from Bloodborne. He's pretty late game and is regarded to be one of the hardest boss fights in the Soulsborne series. He has wild, sporadic movements making him hard to read. He jumps around everywhere making him hard to follow, and when he hits hard. By the time you get to him, your stats are already high, weapons are upgraded, and so there's not much you can do to improve your character. You just need to keep trying and trying until you get lucky. And I was indeed up all night to get lucky. It took me 8 hours to beat this one boss, and the whole time during those 8 hours I knew I could beat him. I mean, I came pretty close a couple times. It was just a matter of when versus Sifu where it was a matter of if. So, when I was finally able to slay this orphan, and he let out his last scream, and the words came on screen, and I got a digital trophy. I looked out onto the sea's horizon. I reflected on the past 8 hours, and I felt nothing. Just pure emptiness. Then, as I approached the ghost of the orphan, it asked me, "What did it cost?" Everything. After that, I turned to the Bloodborne community for consolation. Turns out, all I had to do was wait for him to charge an attack, then go behind him and stick my hand in his booty. I proceeded to beat the game, shamelessly using all the broken exploits I could find. Or, in other words, I used the jank to destroy the jank. I guess my point with all this is that the game should have good gameplay with tight controls that offer the player a chance to grow. If they have to hold a controller like this, the Raptor claw grip, then maybe there's a flaw here. Anyways, I'm rambling on now. This video is getting too long and I'm sure future me is getting tired of editing. So I'm gonna wrap it up by saying, if the hard part of the game isn't showing you the game over screen, then something's wrong. The difficulty of the game should come from the player's own lack of ability and not the poor game design. This ensures that conquering the game's challenges will feel rewarding. Every time I beat a boss, most of the times when I beat a boss in these games, I felt like I had leveled up in real life, and I walked away from the whole experience more confident in my skills as a gamer. And that's what makes these games so great. They transcend the fourth wall and directly affect you in ways that expand off the game's narrative and aesthetic. Bloodborne made me feel like I was living in a nightmare. Sifu made me feel like I was mastering Kung Fu. Metroid Dread felt like I was lost in space, and Cuphead was demanding yet beautifully fulfilling. A lot like making hand-drawn animation. And as for that "why am I paying money for this" comment that I made earlier, well, I think if you're not dying constantly while playing these games, then you're not getting your money's worth. That's why everyone is so against easy modes. These games are supposed to offer you the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. But when put together, they form a journey. And no journey is complete without some sort of struggle. And so, with that all being said, I'm going to go play Demon's Souls since I still don't have money for Elden Ring. So consider helping a guy out by liking the video and leaving a comment on a game that you felt took you on a journey. Or just comment about whatever you thought about this video. It took me a while to edit it and I'm not sure if I should make more videos like this, like long form videos, so let me know what you thought about it, and that's it. Thanks for watching.